Happy Earth Day from all of us at Seneca County Cornell Cooperative Extension. To celebrate the 51st Earth Day, we aim to bring forth activities, projects, and presentations that will inspire you to take action and work to help restore our Earth today and every day. Topics include climate change, reducing, reusing, and recycling, outdoor recreation, land, water, and wildlife conservation, and more. We encourage you to celebrate Earth Day, to participate in an activity, or to share your own Earth Day projects with us. Hello, everyone. The resources and information shared today comes from the National Agriculture in the Classroom website. Specifically, we'll be accessing information from the Agricultural Literacy Curriculum Matrix. There's some great resources available. We are going to focus on the carbon cycle and climate smart agriculture today. Let's start with a little bit of background. Carbon can be found in virtually everything around us. Our bodies are made of carbon atoms. We eat carbon, and our homes and means of transportation are built on carbon. Carbon is the fourth most abundant element found in the universe. Most of the Earth's carbon is stored in rocks, but it can also be found in the ocean, the atmosphere, plants, soil, and fossil fuels. Carbon flows between carbon reservoirs in an exchange called the carbon cycle. Carbon in the atmosphere warms the Earth. Balance in the carbon cycle helps keep Earth's temperature relatively stable. Climate change is attributed largely to increased levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide that is produced by the use of fossil fuels, deforestation, and agricultural practices. Climate change can impact the health and productivity of crops, livestock, fish, and forests. Therefore, climate change has the potential to threaten our food security. Food security is defined by the FAO as a state when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Agriculture is impacted by climate change in a number of ways. Change in average temperatures, rainfall, climate extremes, and changes in pests and disease are a few examples. Agriculture is also known to contribute to climate change due to the greenhouse gases that are emitted in agricultural processes, as well as conversion of non-agricultural land into agricultural land. Looking forward, questions can be investigated, such as how can we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or how can agriculture adapt to a changing climate? Answers to these questions lie in both adaptations and mitigation. Mitigations refer to the steps we take to slow down the rate of climate change by reducing greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Adaptations are actions we can take to prepare for the impacts of climate change. Examples could include selecting varieties of crops better suited to warmer weather, increasing storm drainage in cities to prepare for flooding, or planting trees along streams and rivers to provide more shade and cooler water temperatures for cold trout streams. Let's brainstorm all of the things that we can personally do to reduce our negative impact on the environment. What might some of those things be? Maybe driving less, using public transportation if it's available, reducing plastic use. There's a lot of things we can do. These examples that we just came up with, and maybe some other ones that you came up with, are ideas for mitigation. We talked about that a little bit as it applies to agriculture just a minute ago. There are choices and efforts aimed to decrease the excessive transfer of carbon to the atmosphere. There are also measures that can be taken on farms to mitigate climate change and adapt to a changing climate. I'm going to show you a video Happy Cows Help Save the Planet, Climate Smart Agriculture in Costa Rica. I'd like you to take a look at the video, and then we're going to make a list of things that the farmer did to mitigate greenhouse emissions that lead to climate change.
40 years ago, hungry cattle deforested an entire region of Costa Rica. Now, these same hills are covered with trees and healthy pastures, a testament to Costa Rica's decades-long commitment to agriculture that protects the environment and reduces global warming. Jose Leon Vargas runs his cattle ranch with this commitment in mind. Fences are made from living teak trees. Forest ecosystems absorb carbon dioxide and protect native wildlife. Water comes from naturally maintained springs. Nutrient-rich grass protects against soil erosion and feeds his livestock. For Leon Vargas and other farmers and ranchers in Costa Rica, climate-smart practices are not just good for the planet, they make economic sense.
Sí se ven beneficios económicos, sino que también hay una satisfacción personal, que es la relación que tiene uno con el medio ambiente.
These workers are busy growing saplings from seeds donated by farmers. When they're a little larger, they'll be sold back to farms at a minimal cost. Trees are a vital part of Costa Rica's climate-smart agricultural movement. So-called living fences stretch across the lush landscape. Growing trees are planted in rows and strung with barbed wire. They're sturdier than fence posts of dead wood, and the roots fix nitrogen in the soil. Trees are also planted in fields to provide shade for cattle and for coffee plants. Farmer Julio Jimenez Hernandez has more than 1,000 cedars and other trees on his farm of 4.5 hectares. Every 3 years, he receives a payment of $1.30 for each eligible tree through a World Bank-supported carbon credit program. Besides the cash payments, the leaves and bark protect and nourish the soil, so he doesn't have to buy much fertilizer. But there's more. In a few years, the trees will reach maturity after 14 years of growth, and Hernandez will be allowed to sell the timber for a windfall profit he projects could be around $50,000.
Todavía le faltan entre 4 y 5 años para ser cosechados. Ellos ya cuando tengan cierta condición van a valer cerca ahí de $350 a $400.
Trees are not the only way for farmers to reap windfalls. 20 years ago, dairy farmer Carlos Gomez spent a chunk of his profits on grains and fodder. Now, he mostly feeds his cows grasses he harvests on his own land. He grows several varieties. They're specifically bred to fix nitrogen into the soil and to provide protein, fiber, and energy. Saving money on cow feed has increased the profit Gomez makes from his 17 cows, 3 calves, and a half a dozen goats. He's also spending less on fertilizer because he corrals his cows into small areas of his 22-hectare farm, and he moves them to a new plot every day, so grass has time to recover.
En esta comunidad y esta finca, muchos productores estamos usando prácticas sostenibles con el medio ambiente, bajando costos de producción y utilizando los recursos locales.
Everything here is designed to lessen the farm's carbon footprint and save money. Water comes from a spring on his property. To ensure that the water supply doesn't run dry, he and his neighbors allow natural forests to grow on the banks to protect the stream bed. That has the additional advantage of protecting birds and other wildlife, as well as preventing erosion. Even cow manure is put to use. It's collected in this contraption. It's called a biodigester. Manure goes in, and with water and time, it captures methane. Gomez uses the fuel to operate the equipment he needs to make cheese, and a line runs to his house to provide fuel for cooking and heating water. Another savings. Gomez says that he and his neighbors believe in climate-smart agricultural processes because they make economic sense, and because they're proud that Costa Rica is considered a world role model. He has seen climate change, and he knows action must be taken.
El clima ha cambiado y va cambiando. Estos efectos fuertes contra la agricultura sí ha cambiado.
Of course, the methods and species used in Costa Rica won't work for every country. Climates, soil conditions, and water supplies differ around the world. For instance, these cows at a research facility are being specifically bred to tolerate Costa Rican heat and still give milk. But other countries could adopt Costa Rica's commitment to a climate-smart approach to growing crops, raising livestock, maintaining forests. It not only saves the planet, but makes good economic sense. It could become a universal trend, a mindset. At his ranch, Leon Vargas is so committed to sustainable practices, he even uses guppies to clean the water in the trough used by his cattle.
Sí la sigo haciendo porque yo lo hago por convicción, no lo hago por negocios, ni por unos dólares más o colones menos. Creo que es obligación de todo ciudadano ayudar en lo que es la conservación y amortiguar o mitigar los efectos del calentamiento global.
So in this small country at the crossroads of two worlds, a carbon footprint is reduced at minimal cost and maximum benefits.
A la tierra hay que agradecerle y hay que devolverle.
Thanks for watching that video. What did the Costa Rican farmers do to mitigate climate change? What are some things that you recall? They did things like used fences made from living trees. They managed healthy grass and forage, which protects soil from erosion. They planted trees for shade. They took measures to protect birds and wildlife. They used a biodigester for manure management and more. There's a number of goals in climate smart agriculture. You'll see them listed here. One is to increase productivity. Another is to enhance resilience. And another is to reduce emissions. We can increase productivity by producing food, fuel, and fiber for a world that requires the use of natural resources and comes at a cost to our environment. If we can increase the productivity and efficiency of our farming practices, the overall environmental impact of producing food per calorie will actually be less. We can enhance resilience in a lot of ways. Although mitigating climate change is important, our climate is changing. Measures to enhance the resilience of livestock and crops to climate change are necessary to continue to produce food for a growing population. And we can reduce emissions. Science and technology are helping us to identify ways we can change farming practices to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. If you have time, it'd be great to do some research and think about some climate smart farming practices, because really they impact all of us, whether you live on a farm, whether you produce food yourself. We all eat food. We all need food to survive. And so it's important that we all think about how we can work to make this change.
Today I'm doing a little bit of trout fishing here in central New York. I'm on a small trout stream with public fishing access. I'm using a spinning reel and a 6-foot rod, and I'm just throwing these small spinning baits. And here, a little blade, and they just produce a little bit of flash, and hopefully we can catch a few trout. are on the side of the stream, and we haven't had any bites yet in our first little bit of walking, so we're just gonna get into our pack here and we're gonna grab a different color spinner. I think I'm going to go with that green. It's our Trout. These are just really inexpensive spinners that I actually got at a gas station because I wanted.
Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about making seed starter pots out of things that you might already have at home, mostly in your recycling bin. So now that spring is here, it's a good time to start thinking about planning your garden and what seeds you would like to use and grow this year. So first we're going to get right into making the pots. So like I said, right from my recycling bin, I had some things like a toilet paper roll, or a paper towel roll. Then I even had like a Christmas wrapping paper roll or wrapping paper roll, and it's the same size as like your toilet paper and paper towel rolls, so it's good to use and you'll be able to make a lot more out of those. Other things that we can use is like newspaper or just the paper that came inside, like a package you got in the mail. It's good to use. And then the other thing is an egg carton. So we'll actually look at how easy this is to use for making seed starting pots. So first we'll get right into using the toilet paper rolls and like the paper towel rolls. So I already cut a couple of these already, but we'll show you how we did this. So just with your toilet paper roll, it's round and we're going to want to make it square, so we're just going to fold it in half, press down the seams, and then we'll fold it in half again and make sure those seams, those first seams line up. And then we'll see that it kind of goes better into a square. So we'll fold it in half again, and then we're going to cut this in half, and it doesn't have to be exact, but if you want to just kind of guess where half is, cut that in half. And then we'll open it up again, and then you're going to cut about a ½ inch up on each of those seams for the bottom so that we can make our base. So we'll go around and do all 4 of those. And then now that we have those creases made like that, we're going to actually fold over the flaps, kind of like you would a cardboard box, so that we can fold it right up and have a bottom on it. And it'll already start coming together, and then we'll just kind of tuck and fold some of these, so that just like you would on a cardboard box. And then it'll come together like this. So then you have a nice little base on it, and even have like a hole in the middle for draining some water off of that. But it'll look like this. Nice little size for a seed starting pot. So I already made a few of those. So then you usually want to have like a plastic container under those because you will drain some water. So you could use like a basic plastic container that some people use to start seeds or have in their greenhouse like this. It's like a 10 by 20, and that would fit a lot of those. Or you can just use something else that you might have in your recycling bin, like a plastic tray, or even like a heavy cream carton like this. So I just cut off the top, and you can see I already have some placed in there. So this actually fits about 10 of these really well, and they fit kind of perfect right down in there. And so it can hold your seeds, and since it has a waxy coating for liquids, it'll hold the water really nice, and you won't have to worry about that. But they fit in there really nice, and then you can just put your soil in, put your seeds in, and then use these to grow your seedlings right in your windowsill. It's really nice and skinny, so it could fit right on a sunny windowsill like that. The other thing we're going to use is the newspaper. So if you have a newspaper, or like I said, if you have the paper that comes in some packaging like this, a plain paper, you can use that. So for this, you just get a container. It can be a small can like this. I thought it was a little bit high when I tried it, so I got a little bit of a shorter container, glass container. Something just a little bit shorter would work as well. But so for this, you just cut a nice long piece of newspaper. And before you cut, you kind of measure it to have about 1 inch above your container, and then a couple, maybe 2-3 inches below your container, so you can fold over. And then you just put it out on your table. It's a little bit windy out here, but you can do it inside or outside. And then you just start rolling up. And you want a nice long piece so that you can get a few layers to your pot, so that it'll be a little bit sturdier when you do have your soil in there and watering your seedling and everything. So you just roll it up nice and tight. And then on the bottom, you just kind of fold over like a present. Might not be as pretty, but you just fold it over and tuck the ends like this. And then you kind of just squish it on the table, press down, so you get kind of a better base set there on your container, okay? And then you can either push the top over to kind of make a crease for the fold over, or you can just take your jar right out and then fold over about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches, like this, to make a nice rim at the top to give it a little bit more stability. And then you just go all the way around, folding down, and then press in those sides to get that crease really nice and tight. And then you have a nice little container that almost looks like the size of a peat pot to start your seedlings. So this is nice for like tomatoes and peppers that might need a little extra time in the pot inside before they can go outside. And then again, you can use like a plastic container. You definitely want one underneath because the water will kind of soak through this. But just that plastic container like that would work really nice to have a few of these across, and you could fill up a big container like that with a lot of these to start your seedlings, just like that. And then the last thing that you could use, what we talked about, is like an egg carton. So if you want to take an egg carton like this, all you have to do is take the top right off. So you can cut right along the seam and take the top off and take this flap off. And then you already have these little sections right here that the eggs sit in that are perfect size, like these little containers to fill with soil and have your seedlings right in there. And if you want something to hold those egg cartons, you could use a plastic tray again, or I even had like the bottom of a pizza box in my recycling bin, and this size holds 3 egg cartons really well. So then you have something that can hold it really nice. You just might want to put a piece of plastic underneath. But those are the things that you can use to fill up with soil and start your seeds inside, or have them right on a nice windowsill or in a sunny window. And then when you're ready, they're all made out of cardboard or paper, so they're really great for even just pulling these apart or cutting these apart, or using any of these and just going right out into your garden and transplanting right into the ground, and they will kind of start to decompose after some time, and it's a good little container to use.
Everybody. So I would like to take some time to introduce you to this idea of bird watching, which some people might think like, why bird watching? Well, there's a lot of reasons why we might be interested in bird watching. For some, it's just a fun thing to do. For others, it's a way to just, one more thing you can do when you're getting outside and going for a hike, going for a walk, going to the park, and identifying birds can kind of be something interesting. But as far as a great life skill, actually paying attention to details and thinking about things in the context of maybe a habitat, for instance, can be really valuable for us in anything we do, in school, in work, with our friends, just being focused on details, being aware of details. And that's something that we do when we do bird watching. And then lastly, one of the reasons why I'm really interested in bird watching is because I'm really interested in science and research. And as a bird watcher, I can share information with scientists because I'm a citizen scientist. So I can collect data and I can share that information with scientists who will then use that information to determine things like migratory patterns of birds. They might determine other things about wildlife in our habitats, might determine things about climate, and all kinds of interesting things that they can figure out based on birds and what people see in their environments. So one of the greatest, coolest things that I found, and I introduced actually Outdoor Education Field Days quite a few years ago, and it was very popular, is this fabulous app that you can use on your smartphone, on your tablet. It is called Merlin Id Bird App. And it's really neat because it's just fun to use. It's fun to use different apps. And it's also neat because you can use that information again to share with scientists who are doing research. So I thought I would introduce you to the Merlin Id Bird App. You can actually download it if you have a smartphone or a tablet. You can download it and use it yourselves. If you don't have one of those things, I will also introduce you to some other ways that you can collect data as a citizen scientist. And you can check out that. But if you have access to the Merlin Id Bird App, it's really, really cool. And I'm going to share with you a friend of mine, my friend Renee Hopkins from Livingston County Cornell Cooperative Extension 4-H. Actually recently just did a series of videos, one which included a little segment on the Merlin Id Bird App. So I'm going to actually have her share with you what the app is like, some initial pieces to it, and then we're going to use it to identify some birds in my environment right here today.
All right, so at this time, on that second screen, if you have it, go ahead and take the minute to download the Merlin app. You can find it at merlin.allaboutbirds.org, or if you just do a Google search for Merlin Bird ID app, or head right to your App Store or Google Play and look for that. And go ahead and download it, and then we'll move on. All right, so at this point, I think you've got the Merlin app downloaded and it's working on your phone. So we're gonna walk through really quickly how to use it. Merlin's asking you 5 simple questions. One is the location, where are you? Zip codes, it recognizes those, or you can put in the city, state. The date that you're doing the observations on. The size of the bird, and that's what this screen is here. And it's just size relative to other birds. So it'll ask, is it about the size of a robin? Is it between a robin and a crow? Is it big like a goose? So just your estimation. You can pick up to 3 colors that you see on the bird. I have rarely found that I wanted to add more. Most birds do have primarily no more than 3 colors. And what was the bird doing? What was its behavior? Because a lot of species act very differently. So that information is very helpful to the Merlin app in generating you a list of potential birds. So once you've entered that information, it will bring up a list of birds here that meet the criteria that you put in. So you can scroll down through here to look for the one that you think most resembles the bird that you saw. One thing I do want to point out, this very first picture that they show is usually the bird that's most vibrant and stands out. But if you move across here and scroll, you're going to see other birds that same species, but it might be the female, which is often not as colorful or as vibrant. It might also be the juvenile, so the one that's not an adult yet, and that's going to look a little bit different than the full adult version of the species. So if you think it's like this, but you're not quite sure, go ahead and scroll over and look for the one that you see if a different picture of it looks more like the bird you saw. And if you heard the bird in addition to seeing it, or saw it very briefly but did hear the call, this cool little button right here, the speaker, does share with you bird calls. So you'll be able to press that and hear what the bird sounded like. And when you get really good at paying attention to the sounds of the birds, you can actually do positive identifications of birds without ever actually seeing them. Now, if you are heading outside and you don't have data or access to the Wi-Fi when you get out there, there is a little workaround that you can do. While you do have internet access, open your Merlin app and enter your location and your date. And if you're heading right outside, those two things aren't going to change. So it's going to be the same for all the birds you're trying to identify. You're going to head outdoors, and then you're going to see a bird, and you're going to enter its size, the colors, and what it was doing. And you're going to look through the potential birds it could be. You're going to figure out which one you think it is, record that on your tally sheet, and then hit this back button till you get back to the screen where it's asking for size, and then look for a new bird. And then you're going to see that new bird. You're going to enter the 3 questions, the answers to that. You're going to come up with the list of potentials, pick out the one you think it is. And then if you want to do another bird, again, hit this back button up here to take you back to the screen. And just by going forward and back like that, you can keep using the app even if you don't have internet access. All right, so now we're going to get to some practice. So I went for a walk last weekend at the Canisius Inlet. It was a beautiful day that sunny, very sunny afternoon. I did not take this photograph, but I did see this bird while I was there. So go ahead and enter this information. That's my location and the date. And enter the observations you have of that bird. Okay, now we're going to see if you found what I did. The red-winged blackbird, which I was very excited because they are one of the birds that migrate back to our area in springtime. And interestingly, I typically see robins before I see red-winged blackbirds, but I haven't seen a robin yet this year, but I've seen several red-winged blackbirds. So yesterday, as I was preparing for...
So we are going to take a little break. Come on back. I do want to share with you an image of a data collection sheet. So I love that Renee showed you how you can use the app even when you don't have internet access, which when we're out on the trail, that makes sense. So that's great. There are other ways. So let's see if we can find one of those other ways. So this is not extremely large, but you'll see here a tally sheet. And this tally sheet is actually part of Project Feeder Watch, which is a citizen science project. And I am going to include this link to this tally sheet for Nate to use with this presentation. So if any of you need that, you'd be able to use this tally sheet. But you'll see that it actually gives you an opportunity to list birds that you've found and or identifying factors that you found. So if you needed to list some factors because you weren't sure what the bird was, you could come back when you had internet access again and type in the information. So you would want to remember to know what date you were out looking, the location, indicate what size the bird was, the colors that you saw, and what you saw it doing. Where did you see it and what was it doing? And that would also help you with that data collection. There's a lot to this as well, and it can be a handy one. So we're going to look for some birds and do some bird identification now. So this is a super fun site that you can find at allaboutbirds.org. There's actually a number of live cameras of birds in action. So this one is actually part of Project Feeder Watch, which I just showed you the tally sheet for. So we're going to see if we can maybe check out some birds here. One that we want to identify. I'm going to stop for a minute. So I see a bird right here. I am circling around. I noticed some things about this bird, and I'm going to use my app. I just used my app to figure out what that bird was, that the red-winged blackbird that Renee was identifying too. So I know that the location for this is actually Ithaca, New York, because this is at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And I know that today is May 13th. So I have that date in there. And then I also am looking to see, so I am looking at this bird that's right here, that's on the edge of the feeder, actually near what might be a red-winged blackbird, I'm not sure. But this bird has like a really long pointy beak. It has a bluish gray color to it. So I think it's kind of not really small, more of a medium size. So I'm gonna go with between a robin and a crow for my size. I think that sounds good. We'll try that. Then I'm going to go to next. And I just described some of the colors that I saw in this bird. So definitely some blue. And Renee said I can only pick 3 colors. So what else do I see? Some white and maybe some black. It's hard because there's some gray there as well. So I'm going to go with those 3 colors. I'm going to hit next. And I know, what's my bird doing? He's eating at a feeder, right? So I'm going to pick eating at a feeder. I'm going to go next. And my list is starting to, oh my goodness, the very first bird that came up was a blue jay, an adult blue jay. Blue above, light gray below, black and white markings on wings and tail. Larger than a robin, smaller than a crow. Crest, that's that little piece on the top of its head, and long tail. And there's definitely, I don't see that tail here, but I see this one. And I'm thinking they are the same bird. Noisy and conspicuous in areas with large trees, regularly visits feeders. And I can tell you, I have several of these out at my house. They hang out in the trees all the time, eating all of the yummy treats up there. So let me see if we can hear this bird. I'm not sure. There's several birds there. So let's see if we can turn it on again and listen. So we've heard a lot of sounds, but I'm going to use that sound piece that Renee recommended. Let's see if I can hear it. Turn my volume up. I don't know if you could hear that at all. Let me try again. So that's another way that I can try to really narrow it down to identify my bird, is to also listen to the sounds that I heard. And our birds sound a little quieter than that. I think it's because they're busy eating, but I would say that is definitely an adult male blue jay. So I would love to be able to share that information with the scientists. Let's try to identify one more bird. I'm going to go right out of here. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and show you. I have these fun birds that I love using for my teaching. You can see this one all right. So I was actually just telling Nate about this bird before we got started recording, and I thought we would see if we could identify this bird. Now, yes, it is a stuffed animal, but these birds are really great. They're from the Audubon Society, and they're produced and sold right at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I use them a lot for my teaching around bird identification and all kinds of fun wildlife exploration. So if you've had a chance to take a look at this bird, and if you do have the app, I'm going to give you a minute to start to list locations. So we can use, you could use your location if you like. I will use my location. We can put in today's date. We can put in the size, the color, and the behavior. Now I will say about this bird is this stuffed animal looks a certain way, but I can tell you in real life, this bird's kind of small, okay? So let's see what we can find out about this bird. Let's see, I have to go back because I already did my blue jay identification. Let's see, so this bird is kind of small, so I'm going to say, we could say robin-sized. It also might be between a sparrow and a robin. I'm gonna go with between a sparrow and a robin because it's quite small. I'm going to say next, and I noticed, what did you notice about colors? Definitely the black, because we see the black on the wings and on the head. Okay, what else do you notice about colors? We get to put 2 more in if we like. Lots and lots and lots of yellow. Okay. And then there's just a little bit of white at the tail and under the wings. So I'll leave the white on there. So I'm going to say next. And this bird, I find this bird definitely at my feeders. And I've seen it on the ground. I've seen it in trees or bushes. So I'm going to go with in trees or bushes for this one, just to see what comes up. And then next, it's thinking. You can't really see. Oh my goodness. The very first one that pops up, this doesn't always happen, American goldfinch. And that's what this bird is. Actually is an American goldfinch. It actually says right on my card there. So it's a small finch, sharply pointed bill in pink in summer. So the bill is pink in the summer. It's not quite summer yet. Grayish brown in the winter. Small head, long wings, and short notched tail. Adult males in spring and summer are bright yellow with black forehead and wings. Females are dull yellow, which Renee mentioned, they may have different colors, below, and olive above with 2 distinct wing bars in winter. They are drab, buffy, brown, active, and acrobatic. I love that it tells us what the birds might look like in the summer or the spring or the winter because they don't look the same all year round. So as I scan through, and I know you won't be able to see my bird there. Nope, it's too hard to see, I think. But that is the female, and that is definitely not as bright. And then I see the birds during different seasons, which is really exciting. So if I scroll to the left across on my screen, I can see them in a number of different ways. So let's take a listen. So that's the American goldfinch from the Merlin Id Bird App, and I'll try to see if I can get mine to play. So these play birds, these stuffed animal birds, actually, if you push on their bellies, they actually have recorded sounds, and they do. They match up. It is the American goldfinch. It's kind of fun to do that. If anybody ever has an interest in doing more of that, and they don't have access to birds at certain times, I would be happy to do more activities around identifying birds with the Merlin Id Bird App, using the feeder cams or other cams that Cornell Cooperative Extension and Cornell University and the Cornell Lab of Ornithology have available to them. I cannot wait to share the findings that we made today with scientists who are doing research that will help inform a lot of decisions that we make about our world.
Thank you for learning with us today. You can access our many resources that can support your ventures into celebrating Earth Day all year round by following us on social media on Facebook at CCE Seneca, at Seneca County 4-H NY, and at CCE Seneca F2S. And visit our website, senecacountycce.org and www.senecarecycles.org for more suggestions of how you can continue to make a difference. Happy Earth Day today and every day.